So I think we should start now, and
Yeah, we should get started.
meanwhile people can join in. And the
Yeah.
other one, so whoever is joined today, thank you so much for joining in. One thing that we would love, because it's a webinar, it's more like a discussion, not just a webinar. So we would love to have your questions popping up from any time you have while listening to it. You type it up, and we have for after every 5 to 7 minutes, we'll have a slot. We'll stop and ask you, understand your questions what you have put in, and then start giving answers to it. Or if anyone wants to come in and talk about it as well, I can push them to allow to talk so that you can do it. Hi Degya. And so that's it, and we'll answer your questions from the chat. So wherever you're typing right now, you can start typing it there when you have some questions. Okay, so I'll start the session. I'll share my screen, NK. Let me know when you can see it. Okay.
Yes, let's make it conversational. It's not like boring webinar. We don't want to do that, and we just want to make sure that it's helpful. We try to give like tips on the closed loop as the things detailed about today. But let's make it more. If you can push your key questions that you want to address, we will take them up during the discussion of the course. Yeah, over to you, Tanuj. Let's get this started. Yeah.
Thank you, NK. And you can see my screen, NK, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's beautiful. Okay. Lady calling on the phone.
Okay. So the first question, like it's kind of like questions to everyone, and I hope the answer is yes. Are your customers talking to you? And I'm sure they are. So we'll start the flow of the presentation. We'll go like we'll talk about why closed loop is important, and then we'll go about writing the tips from how to do closed loop and what is the process, how it can be set up. So anything our customers say about us from the brand perspective or the product, or even when they contact the service, is actually customer feedback. So, and why should we listen to it? So even though we know why should we listen to it, but let's just still talk about it. It makes us customer actually feel involved and important. Okay, there is some brand who actually listens to me, which helps in building healthier relationships. The other part which is really good about customer feedback is it helps us understand what are our customer expectations. And once we understand that expectations, we can easily identify what are the most friction points. Is it the service? Is it our app? Is it the brand? Is it the content that we are producing is not making sense to them? We can identify the friction points. And then slowly we talk with different teams, different departments, and prioritize and start resolving those issues. So that is like a complete process of how we should take customer feedback and not just measure it. So I'll keep on talking about this thing, and I think NK will too, that measuring customer feedback is nothing if we don't do anything about it. So I've seen like a lot of companies that we have worked with, or we are not currently not working with. What we understood from their CX teams or different departments is they are taking customer feedback, but they never ever acknowledge the respondent or the customer who gave us a score that thank you for sharing it with us. We never deep dive into the root cause, because even if we take feedback through any platforms like feedback platforms, we never exactly close loop or call them. So I'm talking on behalf of most of the companies. We do not take any actions on feedback, and even if we do take actions, we never tell it to them that you told us something and we fixed it. Because customers actually feel really loved when you hear to them, and you also, when you fix those things, you tell them that, okay, Tanuj, you gave me a feedback like this, I fixed this up, please try it now and tell me what your new feedback is. So they feel more involved, that this is the company that listened to us. But this is something which is missing in, I would say, 50 to 60% organization in the world right now. And when we do that, when we don't act on the feedback, these are how the customers feel. It's kind of like a step 1, step 2, step 3 process. The step 1 is annoyance. What is the point of sharing my feedback when there is no action on it, leading to low, you can say a first type of dissatisfaction. Then they again share their feedback, and when we don't do anything on it, it leads to frustration that I would never do it again, and it causes the low response rate. So when I and NK discuss, and I discuss with a lot of customers as well, everyone says we struggle with survey response rates, that people don't respond to us. The thing is, if they are frustrated because you have not done anything on the previous feedback, why would they respond to you? So that is one of the reason of causing the low response rates. And the third and the last step that happens when you keep on not listening to them, not acting in, that I don't trust them anymore, leading to a bad word of mouth on Google reviews or social media reviews, or even if we are selling on Amazon, we see bad reviews because we are not acting on it. So it comes as a part of disassociation that this company never listens to me. So my question for now, everyone who's attending this, is this happening with you? NK would start pushing questions in the chat, and we would like to know, is there something that resonates with you right now? Because it's not something to worry about. It's something that we'll discuss in this webinar, that how to make it possible that our customers don't feel that way. So the first question would be, are our customers truly happy?
I would say that, yeah, I would say that this question is very common question, and everybody knows about it, but the true answer, like I think like nobody can say the 100% answer of this question. Yeah, so that's the biggest challenge that I have seen, like most of the organization is currently facing up. So they have certain processes in place to get to know about it, but if I ask like, are you really 100% sure, then you know that only 20% or 30% is able to address this question.
Absolutely, NK. And the other thing that I keep on seeing these days is when people, there are a lot of reviews that come in on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, if we're talking about B2C, and if we're talking about B2B on G2 Crowd or Capteras or Trust Pilots of the world, the review sites. How many times have you actually seen that people are always responding to the negative feedback on social media? So I have seen some teams who have deployed some of the call center staff to the social media, but not many are doing this. So when was the last time you replied to a negative review on social media and got it resolved? And so I have this question for the chat. Can you type in the chat?
I just added this. Yes.
Do we see any response from anyone?
Not yet. I think people are still listening to you. They love you. They don't want to look at the chat, so
okay.
They want to just listen to you.
Okay, no worries. So then the most common thing which we always see is we send surveys, but people don't respond to us. So that I don't have to ask this question because most of the people around us, we struggle with it. And one of the major causes of this is customers feel that you will not do anything about it. That's one of the major reasons that we receive low response rate. And people who are giving us feedback is someone who is trying to initiate a conversation with us, because we are not giving them something, but they are just still sharing the feedback because they trust in the starting that maybe this brand listens to us. But once you stop doing it, once you stop replying or closing the loop with those people, they'll stop replying to your surveys. And this is where, when the engagement stops, is where you start losing customers as well, not just not responding to the survey.
Yeah,
so
it's a slow process, Tanuj. I think I just want to make sure that it's a slow process. Like, you don't respond. You don't see immediately, but after a certain period of time, you will start struggling that my response rate is gone slow.
Yeah,
and to bring it back, it also take a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely, NK. I completely agree with it. And see, what I've seen, NK, when I talk to a lot of CX people, we talk about that NPS is still decent. It's going up, it's going down. But one thing that we do not talk much about is what happens to the people who are not replying.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. So what are we doing about people who are not replying? Are we reaching out to them and just understanding that why you are not replying? Is it something like they don't like to give feedback, or is it something that they don't trust you'll do anything, right? So
certainly.
Then, yeah. So then the next question is, how many times have you actually called them if they shared negative feedback? Does this happen to you more often? Does your company allow you to actually give those calls to people who give a negative feedback to deep dive and understand more?
Yeah.
And
I
Go
think
ahead.
you mentioned very right point here, Tanuj. Like, sometimes when we have a negative feedback, we take passive actions, instead of an active action. So I have seen that, people will just send you an email, or, just respond with an automated email system, alert system. But often, like, having an active conversation for negative feedback is really, really important thing, that changes the way the customer looks up to you. And, that kind of a relationship is actually being, to the next level when we start like doing an active way to listen and act onto the negative feedbacks.
Absolutely. And one more thing, NK, like when we talk about once there are some companies who actually solve it, but the only thing then goes missing is how many times have we actually informing people or our customers that this issue has been resolved? Because if let's suppose it's the same case when you contact customer service, they say that we'll get back to you in 48 or 72 hours with the resolution or something, and if they don't reply to you that it has been resolved, you'll keep wondering in the way that are they actually acting on it, because you are not checking your phone every time that to see that it is resolved or not. Because it's very important that when we are contacting someone via customer service or even sharing feedback, if you're fixing this stuff, you have to actually contact them and let them know that it's done.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I just wanted to add one more point here is that, like, we specifically myself was like kind of a, not doing this when we are, done something and responding back to the customer saying that, okay, we have already covered this. Because
Right.
there are two elements to it. One element that either the point is very, very small, that you would just apprehend that, okay, the customer will automatically get to know about this when they actually, try to log into the product next time, they will get to know about it. So I don't need to tell them in advance. And the second is that, like, we probably, miss to tell them. But I have seen that when I have started doing this, even for the small thing that has been updated in the product, and I
Right.
went to tell them, hey, I'm delighted to tell you that, your request has been fulfilled. And here is a quick way to look at this. I have made a 30-second video for you to look at it. And they were so
Yeah.
delighted with that just small thing. I would say
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
really helped me a lot to bring in back their trust.
Absolutely, because it then works as a conversation starter as well, NK. That
Yeah.
okay, these this brand listens, and when they talk to someone, so I've seen this in our product itself. When we have talked to them again, we told them about that this has been fixed, and I'm going on to the next call. So one of the customers said that, Tanuj, you told me that it will be done on 30th. So he was in Australia, so he said, I already tried it before you even told me, and it works well. It's perfect. But thank you for still telling me that it has been done. So some customers are like really appreciate this way that okay, they are reaching out. And now what happens? What the good thing happens, because we are B2B, we also focus more on customer feedback to people who use our product. They keep on pushing the feedback on their own. So I'm receiving emails, okay, that this is not working, and this is something that I want to do, but I'm not able to. So instead of me asking for them, now they have started replying to me, NK. So I think this is also a very good way that people, without even I'm sending an NPS survey or anything, they're still giving me feedback. So what's better than that?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll move on. So here's what, like, we discuss about, is this happening with you too, and here's what might be wrong. So I'll take context of Indonesia a little bit. Is like we have seen in Indonesia, people are mostly dependent on phone surveys, or we call CATI, or face-to-face surveys for customer satisfaction, which takes like weeks to process. We are doing it in Excel, mapping it, maybe it an agency is doing it or we are doing it, and it becomes too late to actually respond to customers. So I've seen this one problem in Indonesia, which I think it's now fixing slowly and slowly. People are starting trusting the online platforms a little bit more. And for any other person who's like, people are joining from Spain, Italy, for them, I know that you will not be maybe aware of that phone surveys or something right now, and you must be using some online platforms and everything. So there's one thing that we need to do is, if you receive a negative feedback, make sure that you get a notification over your email or Slack or Microsoft Teams, whatever you're doing, and you start actually calling customers. We'll talk about how to make that as a part of process, but it's just a simple thought that we should start doing it and understanding what's going wrong. Because sometimes in surveys, like NK, when sometimes we give surveys, even if I give a good survey, I'll just write, oh, the app was good. If it's a survey about an app again, and then I might write the app was crappy, but that doesn't make any sense, right, NK? So it's something
Absolutely.
calling people, it makes you deep dive more.
But I think the context is very, very important on these things, just to understand what is the basic root cause of the feedback, and being it more like unbiased way to lead it, to get to know this. These are very, very important. And sometimes I feel like it doesn't happen all the time, but it's like kind of a gamification, on the survey. So it can happen on the both way, either online or offline or catty, right? But
Right.
but I feel like, if customers is calling up through the catty, and we say that, if we try to influence the respondent, saying that, okay, please, please give the good rating for this question. So
That's bad. Yeah.
and I think like that sometimes it happens. And sometimes when like if I ask you, hey Tanuj, how would you like to rate today's training session, right? So if I ask you in front, probably I have seen specifically in some or like regional, like it's a regional aspect also, like people always are very, very positive. They will give you like a positive rating, and they will shy away to give any negative feedback. So like
If you're
having
asking on the face, right?
yeah. So having like the like offline way where just they can respond back by their heart out. That is where it's technology is giving us like a lot of opportunity to get unbiased feedback. So I would say that online feedback way, by surveys, by WhatsApp, by SMS, these things are like crazily doing a great job.
Yeah. So one other thing, like if like sometimes what I've also faced, NK, that due to some limited resources, or like there is only one CX person in the team. So closing the loop is not the top priority, and because you don't have people to actually giving the call. And I think this is also something that we have faced. The other point is, like, I know it's difficult to get those people, one resource actually, to just start making those closed loop calls. But this is something that we can start doing by doing it on our own. Maybe spare some time, at least call 2 to 3 people in a week if we are alone, a single CX guy, so that once we start deep diving and understanding more about that feedback, and we tell it to the teams who will actually fix it. Once you build a small business use case, that okay, this I called them and this was happening. Whatever we were getting in the service is not just the whole detail, but it's in the call which I actually found it. Once you build those use case, then the other departments start trusting you. So that is something that we need to focus there if we are starting and we don't have resources.
Absolutely. And I think I was just saying, who will have like 100 hands and all the resources of the world to work with? Every organization has like resources that is just educate for their execution part
Role.
of
Absolutely.
it. So resources will always be limited, but I think like it's more comes on to the priority part of it, like how we can organize and make the customer feedback as a priority. So yeah, I think like the next couple of slides you will talk about it. So let's go to
yeah.
Thank you.
And the other part is one which is more important part, which will be the topic of the conversation. There might not be an efficient system actually in place, or we don't know the way to how to make this closed loop process successful and make it a part of the whole organization, not just the CX team. So this will be the most of the topic of the conversation from now on. So that's what we call setting up this complete process of listening, learning, and acting on customer feedback is called closing the loop. And how closed loop help is when you respond back to the customer feedback, you're able to understand their experience from their point of view, because maybe in the survey they don't mention everything. You obtain deeper insights which can help you drive both short-term and long-term CX strategies or product strategies or even service, and take actions on those to enhance your overall customer experience. And if I ask a simple question, why closed loop is important? So only a simple answer for this as well, because there's no point of taking feedback if you're not acting on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think I just want to understand from the audience is that what is one thing that if you want to say that why this is important from your end. So if you just add up like one single liner would be appreciated to know that if you are doing a closed loop or planning to do a closed loop, that what is the one thing that comes as important in your organization, or what do you think about it?
So I think Sergio also made a really good point, NK.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the customer refused to answer, the closed loop was mandatory to explore the reason of refusal. Excellent point mentioned by Sergio. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see this. Carsten, you wanna like say something? Okay, just ask what you can handle. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
No overpromise. Absolutely. Great. Let me yeah, go ahead.
Let's shoot out a poll. Yeah.
Okay,
No worries,
let's do
Sergio.
that.
We'll share the recording with you.
Sure. Okay, I've just turned it on. Just
Yes.
want to make sure that you all can see it.
Yes.
Just a quick question: Where are you? Where are you in the closed loop process? Basically, understanding, don't know where to start, or struggling to get buy-in from the management team. This is one of the most important thing. I have seen that CX team like wanted to do it, but getting the buy-in from the department is very difficult. Or sometimes they see that they say it, but to put them into the priority is also very difficult, like getting to that. And the third thing is that people have tried it, but the results are not there, and that is one another reason that they are not able to get buy-in further, saying that okay, closed loop is important because it requires resources and technology and effort for that. So how do we make sure that we get the buy-in here, right?
Yeah.
So third one is like, yes, we have deployed and working well. So I think Sergio has said that he has deployed and able to see the improvement on that as well.
Yeah.
I'll just take another maybe
5-10 seconds.
seconds
Yeah.
more to then I'll share the report.
We have 5 more seconds, guys.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ankes, for joining in. Thank you, Andini. Thank you, Dega. Thank you, Akbar. And guys, please push in the question in the chat box and we can pick it up and have a discussion and address that, how we could really resolve the problem or could share some insights around that. So
Okay.
let me share the poll.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the results on the screen, okay?
Sure, NK.
Okay, can you see the poll
Yes.
results? All right, so I think don't know where to start. I think like, yes, that could be a situation and then struggling to get the buy-in. These are the top 2 element of it. So that's good to know. These are like 2 different issues. We found that, where to start and, how to get the buy-in. So I think probably we will look at and further discuss in, next few slides that how we are doing it and what are the key elements around of the closed loop. And then we should be able to address these questions as well. So let's talk about, and we talk about like, the closed loop and why it is important, right? Now it's really need to understand what are the different type of closed loop. I think like when we initially started, I just know that, okay, customer feedback and close it and that is done. I never know that whether there is an inner loop and outer loop, right? But when I studied further and trying to deploy this and implement across the organization, I got to know that it cannot be as simple as that. So it's a differentiation into the inner loop and the outer loop. And the inner loop is something that your frontliner can resolve the issue by him. So it's a single man resolve the issues by himself. He's empowered to take decisions. And I have seen the people who are able to create closed loop process as much as for the inner loop, they're able to resolve it. But yeah, I would say that outer loop is still exists because the issue that cannot be resolved by the frontliner, it requires like some more decision making, some more brainstorming sessions to discuss that, hey, how do we resolve these issues? And probably like that goes into your outer loop part of it. Can you move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So if you look at what is inner loop and outer loop has the same framework, right? Listen, learn, and act. So where listen happen at from the individual level, he learn the issue and then act on it and resolve it. But if it is not resolved, then the hurdle happen with the organization team, like in different departments, and often requires like third-party vendors to get into this, right? And again, the same process works: listen, learn, and act. The only differentiation, the key difference is that now there are more people involved. And I'm sure like when there are more people involved, like there is an issue of like getting your things on the priority, right? So if I say that I want this to be fixed, but how do I make sure this fix is on priority for all the departments so that they are actually working on it and make my customer happy, right?
Yeah.
So let's take a look on a quick framework for this. Before that, actually, let's take an example. Yeah, let's take an example that we will be addressing with our framework. So like everybody right now is at home, getting, the deliveries at home, right? With the e-commerce. E-commerce is like one of the biggest industry right now.
Yeah.
So but I would say that e-commerce also have like a lot of the emotional attachment toward the customer, right? Because whenever we order something, from the store, there is a certain reason behind it for it, and there is an emotional attachment towards that. So here is a customer who is, this is actually me myself, but I just shared an example here, is that I ordered and then product did not receive well in time. It has to be received in 24 hours because it was my wife's birthday and I have planned specifically for her. And okay, so what happened? Let's take a look. What happened here is that the order didn't came. I was like not so happy because I had to go for another opportunity or like another gift for her. And I called the resolution center team and said that, okay, hey, I'm the prime customer. I wanted to get this product delivered on time. Is it still possible? I was just trying to look at that. But the feedback was very simple that, hey, I can track your order. It's in the shipping way, but it can be delivered to you in the next 24 hours. I said, hello, what? But yeah, means that was a quick conversation with that. And then I got an email notification saying that, okay, we're really sorry that, your order would be delivered in next 24 hours. But here what happened, that I felt a lot of emotional gap with that issue, right? And because it was very, very specifically, curated for the moment, and I lost that moment for that. And the first thing, like what happened is if certain workaround could have been provided to me, to still able to resolve the problem by the first hand itself, that would have been resolved as an inner loop, but that was not happened. Right. And then when I further received an email from them after 3 days saying that, okay, there was an issue with the vendor that I have ordered, it is actually cannot deliver in 24 hours. They can deliver only in 272 hours. I said, okay, but these are the issues that they should know already, right? Now there is an involvement of another vendor to send the product to me, and they have to work with their internal department and see that whether the duration of the delivery can be reduced for certain product, because it's a key product for that, and right. That cannot be actioned by the person who's actually I'm speaking to or who's handling my case. That was been raised to the next level and into the outer loop. So I think I got my product back, but it was delayed. But I think they learned the lesson that how these things should be resolved if there is a gap, because they identified a gap. The product delivery, if you promise as a premium customer as 24 hours delivery, and if you have a very, very specific product that your vendor doesn't guarantee within that time frame, you should mention about it. So that was the gap that we had identified during this exercise, or I would say this example. But my wife was still happy, guys, so don't worry, I brought another gift for her. So because she doesn't know about the previous one, but she got 2 gifts after a certain period of time. So it always good to delight her. So no issues. I'm happy with that. So I'm trying to tell that the issue that something can be resolved at the first hand could go into your inner loop. Something that you cannot resolve by your frontliners goes to your, the outer loop. Yeah. So let's go to the next. So here, I just wanted to take few questions, like, if you have any specific questions to ask, and understanding about inner loop or closed loop. If you're clear, that just put a thumbs up in the chat box. And if you have any question, let's feel free to put down a question here. Let's skip maybe a minute here.
Okay.
For the audience.
So just to summarize by that time, so inner loop is like something which can be solved by the frontliners, the agents, or even a small bug that can be fixed by the team. And outer loop would be something which requires a major change, like a process change, or something which will take huge amount of time and also some investment as well. And the organization level, different departments are involved in prioritizing that. That would be an outer loop, right, NK?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I think let's go to the inner loop and share some insights, tips, that if you are having an inner loop and having problems, that what are the key things that you quickly take action on? What are the key pointers to it that will really help you to boost it? So Tanuj, you want to take this up?
Sure. So inner loop, like NK mentioned, which is something which can be fixed by the frontliner staff, or even the service agent, or even their supervisor. So we'll talk about more how does that work. So first of all, like if we are doing inner loop, we have to first make sure that we are taking feedback after every transaction at each touch point across the journey. For example, if we are measuring feedback after a support call, NK calls to a support company to ask for a support, and as soon as the support is done, a feedback comes to his email, SMS, or WhatsApp, whatever he prefers, that how was the call today, how easy was it to get your issue resolved. So when that happens, and the second step that we should do is thank the customer for sharing that experience by an automated email or an SMS. We can do that. Or then the third thing we do is, if there is a negative feedback, we immediately send alerts to the person who was attending that call, if it's related to the service, or if it's related to the product, we send it to the product team that there is a negative feedback that comes in, and this is the customer name. Why we have to immediately send this to the team is also one other reason. The importance is, if you do not send it directly to the agent or the team at that moment, they will actually forget about it later. For example, if you do not send them an alert that there was a negative feedback when NK called, but you're telling them 15-20 days after that these are 4-5 negative feedback you have received, and these are the customers who gave it, who will remember at that time? Absolutely. So it's important to send alerts immediately once the feedback comes in. And not just that, also share the positive feedback. Maybe you have a company-wide Slack channel or a team channel, Microsoft Teams, or an email itself. Send the positive feedbacks as well, because that helps those agents and the product teams get motivated about it. Okay, I'm receiving good feedback as well. So that means that at least this is something that I'm doing good. Then the fourth point is, after sending those notifications, is actually the team lead or the agent actually picks the call and understand customer in detail. Most of the time, a lead will call them to understand, is there any unresolved issue, or was there a behavior issue when we were on a call? Is there any other feedback that you would like to share? So that the lead empathizes with the customer and they share more feedback, which maybe they have not mentioned in the survey that we send them. So that is the number 4 point. Then the 5 point is, take right actions on the problem and communicate to the customer. So if that problem is, for example, they were not getting a refund, that is what NK called the customer and he was not getting a refund. The contact center says the agent was not able to resolve the issue, but when the manager called, he made some calls inside the company and the refund can be initiated immediately. That is the kind of problems an inner loop can solve. Something which a leader or an agent can own themselves and fix it after they receive a negative feedback. So how, I'll share now some tips to make inner loop successful. I think this is one of the most important part of this presentation. The first thing is, when you have already taken the feedback, as soon as you get a feedback, you set up like alerts on your Slacks, Teams, or emails, so that your agents or your product teams or your service teams, whichever department we are taking the survey for, they immediately know what happened. Notify the positive scores as well. That should be done in the company or department wise channels, so that everyone can see and feel motivated that we are getting good feedback as well. And when you start calling people, when you're starting closed loop, like some people mentioned, don't know where to start. Don't start calling everyone who gives a feedback. Start calling people who give a negative feedback. And as a CX champion, the most important thing, if you want to take this up in the company that everyone does it in different departments, you have to start doing it. So pick up a touch point which is doing really bad and start making those calls and to understand what's going on with the customers. And if you want to avoid, like if you are getting like a lot of detractors and if you want to avoid calling everyone because you don't have time, what you can do, you can ask their permission in the survey itself, that if they have given a bad score, just ask them, thank you for your response, we would like to follow up with you to understand more, is that okay? So just ask yes or no, but make sure if you're asking this in the survey, you are following up with those people, because if you don't, then you are giving a negative experience there as well. And NK, you were trying to say something there.
Yeah. I mean, I think like it's very similar like what Carsten has mentioned, like, just ask what you can handle, right? So if you're asking that, hey, would you like our team to contact you? He said yes. And you said that, okay, please provide your preferred email address or contact number. And then you ask about that, hey, what is the preferred time to reach out to you? And if the person provides you those details, really make sure that, like, you should get back to you. Don't fall on those criterias, because it can really upset them at big time, because they are already upset. But if you're trying to reach out to them, you promise them further, and then you are not reaching out to them, can really upset them.
Yeah.
So just respond back saying that, I think, just ask what you can handle. On those part of it.
Yeah. So, and then the third part is like, I'll keep on mentioning this. Once you build your own process, because you are the one starting it, then start coaching your team members if you have, or the other departments, on why it is important and how it can be done. Because sometimes, like I've also seen CX teams who say that we don't have resource and we want to start doing it, but the company, the management doesn't give a buy-in. The reason why they don't give a buy-in, because you have not built a small use case or a process how it can be done. If you know how to do it, it's easier for you to train other people as well. So that's the point I'll keep on making again and again. And the fourth thing is, which is also very important, don't expect that closed loop process can be done for every department or touch point immediately. Build a small business use case, do a closed loop for a particular department or touch point which is doing really bad. When you do those closed loop, when you make those changes, 3 to 5 months down the line, you see some improvements, then you start pushing other teams to do it as well. Because if you try to do as a lone CX manager, try to do so many things together, you'll actually eventually fail. So you'll try it, but it won't work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I just wanted to add here is that this is really important fact, that people say, if you want to go up, you have to do step-by-step process. So start small. Probably it could be you are the only person who want to start with, and do it. Show the small results, get the buy-in easily, and move to the small step next, and then move to the department. Because CX is not just like one spoon stuff. It is like a gradual process of improvement. It has to be in step-by-step process only. Yeah.
Not a plug and play. Absolutely.
Not in plug and play. Absolutely.
Yeah. And once you start like following up with detractors yourself, make sure you do it within the first 48 to 72 hours of their feedback. Because if you think of calling them after 15-20 days, most of the time they will not even remember why they gave this feedback. So whenever you try to do them, please do. And if once you have trained your team, and if their team are doing it, you're making this as a part of an SLA, like 48-72 hours. Also appreciate and incentivize them when they're following that, when they're deep diving, when they're asking good questions, giving you good reports. Also incentivize them like you do for a customer service team. Incentivize them based on how good they're handling the calls, how good they are in handling SLAs. So incentivize those people as well who close loop within, even if it's a product team, a CX team, a marketing team, or anyone. Then the next point is once like it has been built up and they are okay with it, handling 3 to 4 calls per person in a week's time, you can ask them to sometimes like no, not put an SLA into it, but try to call if you have some time to promoters as well. Because when you call promoters, you hear good things about yourself, and
Yeah.
that makes you, when you feel delighted, you try to push more as an employee. So this is one of the part of employee experience, that calling promoters is really helpful.
And Tanuj, I think I want to add here one example that
Sure.
I deployed is,
Okay.
so some of the like CS team is actually, mostly handling negative customers, right?
Mhm.
And it brings in like a lot of low energy.
Right.
So a small exercise, what we have done is like we gathered a lot of smiley faces. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And whenever we get a happy customer, right, whether we are able to resolve a query with a good note, the employees or like the CS team used to attach a smiley on their board, right?
Right. Okay.
So so that every you look at that, like, if the employees are having filled with a lot of smileys on their board on a daily basis, so they have like a bunch of it,
Right.
but this, like, on a daily basis, like they will have, like, those batches
Mm-hmm.
on those smiley faces. So whenever they get onto their desk and they see those, okay, these are the smiley faces out there,
Right.
then they really feel motivated. I think like I have really done a good job here, man. I think I can really do it.
Yeah.
And there is a innovation happened on that, because I just set them to, put on a smiley faces, because smiley faces we can buy in the, bulk, and then start putting it.
Yes. Yes.
One of the guy, what he
Mm-hmm.
has done, he collected like the pictures of their customer, like, the images, and he
Okay.
started pushing those like onto their board, like saying that, okay,
Wow.
this is the person I started making feel happy, this is the person I make him feel happy. Man, I think like that was really great way I have seen this, like, organization has deployed the closed loop. When he closed it, and the customer was like happy and he was delighted,
Mhm.
he put that smiley face of the customer on the
That's
board
a good
itself.
idea.
Yeah, I mean, that has like crazily increased the, the positive energy, positive vibe in the entire
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the best ways to like improve, I would say, employee experience. Because if employees are motivated to do it, how they would be handling other calls. So I
Yeah.
think this is a lovely thing that you started, NK. So good point for everyone to note down if you want to try something like that.
Yeah, you could try, definitely you try the smiley faces, let me know how it
How it
goes.
works.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and one of the most important thing for while we are doing closed loop is sometimes we actually make those customer calls, we do those closed loop, but we are not recording it, the data at one place. What we are trying to do, we are recording it on a piece of paper that sometimes we forget where that is. And, or if you're not recording it in an Excel sheet or anywhere, which is in your laptop, you will not remember what things were said on that call and every call. Nobody can remember that. So it's better create a Google sheet or an Excel sheet, whatever you prefer, or any tool that you use. Put all the feedback name by customer, that these are the things they have mentioned while I was trying to deep dive into the call. And then once that is done, then you create a small report like every week or every 2 weeks when you have done those calls, and see what are the top themes out of those. Then you kind of like making those reportings. So you are looking at that open-ended data and trying to make themes. Okay, people are mostly talking about this. So that will make you easier for you to prioritize stuff when you talk about closer outer loop in the later stages. So some things which you cannot fix, but they are getting done and you have all the recordings and everything, don't wait it for the voice call and listen it later. Put some notes in an Excel and start finding themes which are most common.
Yeah.
And then in the long term goal, so like CX is not just a single department job, it's a company wide initiative. So regularly train other departments to not only close loop, but how to analyze customer feedback, how to deep dive and decide priorities on their own. Because a CX person cannot handhold every department if we want to improve in the future. So it's like a startup founder. If first of all they are involved in every team, but slowly and slowly when the startup grows, they start doing different jobs but not the same one. So make sure that in a long-term goal, you have something that you train some teams for 3 to 6 months and then let them do those things on their own. And one more important part, because this is about bringing a huge change, it will take time for any company to accept it. Be patient with it. Start small and take it from there. I think, NK, that's it. That's what I want to talk about.
Great, thank you. I think like it's great to know, and it's good questions. I have received one very interesting question, Tanuj. So it's really interesting to talk to our customer that gives negative feedback. But how can we invite them for a deep dive discussion? They usually tend to ignore the invitation and just want to get the problem solved ASAP.
Yeah. So let me take that up, NK. I'll give an example of how it worked for us, actually. So you are right, absolutely, that not every customer will be okay with it. So one thing that we did, asking in the survey itself, would you like to have a follow-up? That is one thing that we tried. And the other things that we try to do is when they are on the call, when we got the like if we got the issue resolved, we actually try to call them and tell them that their issue is resolved. And while we are doing that, that is where we get an opportunity that, okay, we have fixed something. Would you like to share us more feedback? So that is one way of doing it. And the other way is like, if we are just sending invites, maybe they will ignore it once, twice, but they will not be able to ignore you forever. Because what they will feel in 1, 2, 3 maybe follow-ups, that these company actually want to hear us out. So let me give that feedback. So, and once you listen to the feedback, you implement it and you communicate it to them, then for the next time, they will automatically reply to you that, okay, I'm willing to share more. So that's what I've noticed for all the customers that we have. So what we try to do, we are B2B. So NK tries to set up a call with every customer that we have every 15 days to a month. And that is where we give them a chance that we want to do this only so that you can share some feedback. They were hesitant at first, but once they opened up for once and we fixed that, the feedback, so much feedback came in that we were not able to handle, right? NK, that has also
happened. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely great. I think this question is really interesting. And what I see, like for B2C, like small issues, yes, we can ask question in the follow-up itself, so you get to know that whether they're interested to talk to you. I feel like one thing that I have tried that worked well for these customers, if you're trying to have a deep dive discussion, it really means that you really want to get some insight more to solve it. You really don't know what to fix. And that is why you want to go back and have a deep dive discussion. That is one thing, right? So you tell them clearly the timeline, be empathetic to them, just tell them like, why do you want to invite? So if you send an invitation just for a deep dive in session, but you don't tell that what is the agenda of this, why, what exactly you are going to do in that deep dive discussion, people will avoid this. I always see this, what is in it for the customer to be the part of that deep dive discussion? Because if you have promised something as a part of your delivery and they're asking you to fix it, and then you want to address it, it could be the problem that you really haven't understood the problem at the first place itself. Now they are like asking you to fix it. So there is a gap. So it's a gap identification there, right? So it needs to be addressed. And you really, whenever you reach out to them, tell them very clearly that what you are going to do this, why you want this initiative. You tell them, okay, I want to connect with you to solve the problem ASAP, but there are some questions to address to solve it completely, right? So that message has to be very, very clear. Then only you'll do this. Yeah. And one of the bigger organization, like in the B2B space, where I have seen you are following certain problem and you see the pattern and trying to understand. And if you're trying to send invitations, people are not coming onto your board. The other way around, what I have seen is been done is kind of you create like a dinner invitation. We have done that. lunch invitations for that. It
And
doesn't matter,
B2B,
it has to
yes.
be like kind of, email invitation just to discuss that. So if this is a, and it depends upon what the problem is, the client is, and the relationship, it's based on that. So you have to look out for the other alternatives way to connect your customer, not only just like, getting on them to the Zoom call. That doesn't work all the way. Just give them a phone call. Why do you need a Zoom call if you just can speak to them? Be it more realistic, be it more human. And if you are empathetic enough and you are trying to reach out to them to solve the problem, you will be able to do it. It's really make sure
Absolutely.
that what you want to do with the customer and what is in it for them. Just think from the customer's perspective, I would say.
Yeah, good point, NK. And so I'll move to the next one. I think that there are no more questions, right, in the chat, NK?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So so one important thing, once you have learned how to do it, it's important to coach employees as well, or maybe different departments, because you will not keep on doing it for like every department. Otherwise, you'll grow crazy as a CX person. So to help your employees grow, improve their skill set, and serve their customers better, show them the bigger picture on overall level. What is the feedback given by the customers? If you have like open-ended data and you have seen the themes, you tell them openly that this is our NPS score, these are the themes that customers are really talking about, and if we improve that, this NPS scores will go up, our rates will go up. I'll, as an employee, if our performance goes up, the company does well, so it will be beneficial for the employees as well. So show them the bigger picture, don't hide stuff from them. Second is like tell them that when missing on the themes, team says these are the negative things we are doing, tell them that we kept that as a promise that this will not happen. So if it is happening, it is something to do with us that we have to improve on. Most important part I would say is, if someone is giving us a negative feedback when we are a new employee, even when I started, I would get offended by customers saying something bad about how I handled the call or how the product has been developed. But slowly over time, if you coach them that this is the only way we can improve is if someone is willing to give us critical or maybe a negative feedback on the face. Even when we talk about how we deal with employees as a leader, if we are hiding them and not giving them feedback on how to improve, how will they? So that is what we have to tell them, that it's the similar with the customer as well. Like as a leader, I can give you feedback, you can also give me feedback, so the customer can too. And then sometimes when they don't know how to close loop or what questions to ask, go on a call them and tell them how to. Maybe write a couple of questions which you will definitely ask always, so that they know that this is how you can start a conversation with them. Then and if the customer starts speaking out on the questions, don't get defensive. So sometimes people ask the right questions when they get a feedback, when the customers open up, actually they're not able to handle it. So at that time they have to stop thinking about taking it on their own, on their ego or anything. Just empathize with the customer. Okay, this is something that he's telling me or she's telling me, I have to focus on that. So these are 4 or 5 steps that the way you can start coaching them. And maybe some recordings, you can show them how it's been done well and where they have also done well. So it's something that we can do. In terms of who should own closed loop, so closed loop to be ultimately owned by everyone. But if we talk about different teams, if it's feedback for the service team, agent itself or their managers or leads can do it. If it's about the product, mostly product managers or UX designers would do that. If it's for the CX team, generally it will be not, but CX team will be owning it in the starting when they want to make this as a process, or senior management. So they also know what kind of customer issues are and how are we responding to them. So it depends on which team it is doing it. Actually, the team owners should own it, but sometimes the senior managers in the team should also listen to it. Don't leave it to all the junior employees to understand, because when you hear the things face to face or on the call, you start empathizing easily. So that is how it should be owned. And one thing I would say, the closed loop is always and always driven by the CEO. Even though as a CX person, you'll try to do a lot of things, but you won't get buy-in unless your CEO approves so. So that is something that NK you like to talk about. So I'll leave the mic to you. How do you what do you say about it should be driven by the CEO?
Yeah, absolutely. It means like there should be one driver. I call it like, if you're driving a car, there should be only one driver. You cannot have two wheels who is actually driving it, right? So CEO is actually the driving, everything in the organization, and closed loop is so critical part of it. We want to make sure that it's been driven from the top to bottom approach. Be it like there could be multiple people who are actually taking actions, like you said, service team, product team, CX team, senior management team. Probably they are the pillars, like who's actually driving within the organization,
Right.
but it has to be pushed out from the CEO, and there should be a KPI, there should be a metric around it, and it's a clear identification of the performance of the individual department also. If you try, if you just try to deploy this, but if you don't have a right framework of design of the execution plan of it, like the closed loop, probably you would start but never execute, or you should start, but it will never give you the result that you are trying to get it.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, thanks, Tanuj. I think like inner loop was quite interesting. I think the outer loop is a very pretty big in the sense of like solving the issue. So I'll just take it fast and take questions more. So let's go to the next slide, please.
Okay. I'll ask this question. Mufti mentioned some questions, so we are going to ask it later. You go ahead and
yeah, sure. So what's an outer loop? I think we have already discussed here. So the key point is that if your frontliners are not able to solve the problem, it means that is going into the outer loop, right? And it is required brainstorming. So my key objective is that make sure that you have a different framework identified for how you want to define your inner closed loop and how you are going to define your outer closed loop. And often that the outer closed loop takes too much of time to resolve. And you know that whenever it takes time to resolve, customer get frustrated, how long it is going to take to resolve this issue, right? And the same thing is like, your front executives will pile up the tickets over and over, saying that, okay, my tickets are increasing. So you should have clear identification, proper identification of your SLAs could really help you to minimize the frictions when you're actually working out on your closer loop, outer loop part. Yeah. Go to the next slide, please. Yeah, I think the purpose of the outer loop is priority to change the employees and teams that cannot make on their own. So I would say that we have a clear identification of inner loop and outer loop, and also try to understand some of the time that, okay, maybe like, every month, if I see that what happened is some of the conversation, some of the issues went to the outer loop. But at the end of the month, when we start to analyzing that, 10% of them has been moved back to the inner loop. So we have given more authority to the frontliners, give more empowerment so they can close as much as the outer loop are. And your ability to move your outer loop to inner loop would be one of the key criteria to understand that how effectively your entire closed loop process is working on. Some of the time it may not be feasible, but trying to identify the root cause of the problem and see that it's been resolved, and then you implement and move it to the inner closed loop, or rather fix it as such that you are not getting inner loop problems as well. So that is I would say the key purpose of the the outer loop part. Okay. And the biggest element of biggest element for outer loop was that creating a customer centric culture. So let's say that if there was a big problem that Tanuj was handling a call and it came through, and he know that this is the bigger problem, I cannot solve it, and then he raised an alert and he still be the customer face, right? Because he was the customer face. But through the outer loop process, discussing and brainstorming, you are able to resolve that problem, and then you see the customer face happy. You see that, wow, means like, great, I was able to solve a problem that was like much bigger, right? And so that gives like a different level of motivation to the frontliners. So I will say that make sure that whenever there is an outer loop, you get get that into that, okay, these are the problem resolved. And often it's not true. Outer loop takes long time, and sometimes, like, you have frustrated customers and they say that, okay, it's just 1 month, 2 months down the line, still the issue is not resolved. And you probably see more customer are falling into the same criteria, and the outer loop goes into your lower priority. Inner loop gets fixed, but outer loop, I have often seen that these issues goes into the lower priority. Why? The reason is simple, that it requires multiple people to work with. It requires some cost. It requires interaction. It probably could require some policy changes that cannot happen overnight. But let me tell you, if this is something been asked by the customer, then you have to really think that, okay, if this is a legitimate requirement, then you should always prioritize that and have a proper framework for this.
And
Right?
the same thing goes in here as well in outer loop. Once you have built a business use case with one department, generally like outer loop should the ideal outer loop would be that not everyone has to get involved, just the department head and the CX teams, right? That would be the ideal way, MK, right?
Yeah.
And the CEO has given the permission to approve it because they believe that the CX team and the department head are going in the right direction. So ideally it should be that, but once you start to do it, you want every departments to own their own outer loop. You have to build a business case. So we keep on mentioning this, so make sure that you build a business case before expecting everything else.
Great.
So quickly, let's take to the how does it work, NK?
Yeah. So this is, I think, like, we're going to share this slide, so don't worry too much of this. You can just snap it if you want. But look at the main pillar here, right? So very simple. This is very, very simple process, but analyzing feedback to understand common friction points, this is the biggest element to get started with the outer loop. And once you understand the root cause, then you prioritize the opportunity and develop solutions and implement it, and then later communicate. So I think, like, we have already talked about these communication, why the communication is so important factor in the closed loop in our earlier session. But I keep focus on the first parameters itself, like analyzing feedback to understand common friction point. If you're able to put efforts on that and understand, analyze that, okay, this is my outer loop. Because some of the time, Tanuj, I see that people are not able to understand whether this is actually an inner loop or an outer loop, because the definition is very open. But the advancement of technologies, resources who are actually working on it, they always take a thing, okay, how it will be worked out. So that is really important factor, that once you identify that, hey, this is the outer loop problem, and then understand the root cause and then prioritize, and then you will be able to curate your solution very effectively. So let's keep focus on that, and we will be able to work it out. And if you need any support and help, I think that we will definitely help that. But let's go to the next slide here.
And just last thing for I want to mention, NK, two things. One is, like, only your NPS CSAT and your inputs for outer loop is not just NPS CSAT, is your employees as well, who are telling you something about the customers, because they are the first people who are talking to customers all day. So it's the NPS feedback, it's the employees, it's even the things that people are mentioning on your support in your support teams, maybe chat, email, or it can even be social media. So if you talk about all the inputs of in outer loop, it will be surveys, chat, and everywhere the customer is trying to do it. And the last most important thing is about communicate. You always like encourage, if you let the employees and the customers know that this has been fixed, they both feel happy and heard. But if you're not doing something about it for some other reason, make sure you explain this to the customers and employees as well. This communication I have seen missing. If you're not working on something because of some reason, you don't tell it to the customers or employees, you miss it. That's why they feel unheard. Be honest and transparent. Tell them why you're not working on it.
Yeah, and I think I can give you one example of communication for part of that. Like, if there is problem bigger, and there could be some regulations around it, that if you are working on those elements, part of it, you cannot reveal to your customers that this is something that you are working with, because you are still not sure, because you are still in negotiation, you are still in working out to solve the problem. You are trying your level A, your level B, and level C, but it's still not clear that which level should work to solve that problem, right? And then we are under the assumption that, okay, till the time I get something concrete, then only I will get back to the customer and tell that, okay, this is what we will do for you, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lag actually. So we will have to make sure that don't keep the the difference between like actual solution and the communication into your communication channel. Basically, we all agree that if the problem is bigger, it will take time to solve. So we have to really be very truthful to the customer. Tell them, this is going to take longer. We are trying to identify the solutions best for you, but it may take a little longer for you. So you can really upfront tell them that this is not, they are not going to receive it like a next day or like, next week. And the most thing frustrated is that you say that, okay, we're working on it and we'll get back to you after 24 hours. Then after 24 hours, then you again say 24 hours. But 24 hours doesn't end like until a month. So that is most important.
More frustrating. Just be honest.
Frustrating part of it. Be honest. I think be honest.
I think this part we already captured, NK, right?
Yeah, so I think this part we have already captured. We'll share with our audience on this one. Now, this is the biggest element for it, how to prioritize the opportunities here. So great. So this is very close to me. So I think while working on this closed loop process, one thing always comes that, hey, if it is the outer loop, yes, priority has to be there. But if you have multiple issues of outer loop, which one should be picked, right? Absolutely. What would be the initiative? So I think I have another priority framework that I can share with. Here we're going to talk about the understand the impact. Impact is at two levels, customer level and the business level. If the impact it at the business level, you will very easily get the buy-in to get that done from the business, right? Yeah. Let's say, but if you are a front facer of customer, right? And then say, hey, this is something, not gonna impact much on the business side, then how do you get this as a priority? That's the biggest thing that I've seen happening, right? Here in this situation, you really need to understand that how you are able to create a small use case, create a use case that probably is not, is impacting the business in the right current phase, but you are at least able to motivate people to address that question. So getting the buy-in from the higher management, I'll give you one very, very important clue of it. And if you try this, I'm sure that you will get 90% time the buy-in on your task. Understand that everybody, if you are the head, right? So if you have to approve something, why would you approve? That's a simple question, right? And trying to understand the motivation of the person to whom you are seeking the buy-in from.
Requesting.
So so a simple question, why does he approve it? What is in it for him? What is in it for the organization for that? Is it gonna really make any change? Or is it just that you will have your KPIs met, and if your KPIs are not interlinked with your supervisor, then there is a functionally something wrong. There is functionally something wrong, and then there will always be a chaos on that. So that is why I see what I say that if you are having a problem in getting a buy-in, the problem is not that how you are trying to approach. The problem is that there is no proper system. There is no alignment between your KRA's KPIs with your seniors KRA's KPIs. If those are interlinked, I think you are right there to get your buy-in. So just try to identify where is the gap. Either you are working on something else and your senior management is working on something else that is priority for them. So try to link between these two. Try this out. Let me know if you still have issues. We can definitely talk.
Yeah. And one more thing, NK, I loved your point about when you are going to the other department, also show it what's in it for them. Yeah. So the first thing is how many customers will be impacted if it's a B2C or a B2B. Yeah. How will it move our business goals, the company wise and that department wise? Because for customer feedback, if you do not link it to the department KPIs, the one that you are requesting, they will never give you a buy-in. And the third is then how you prioritize is how much effort will be required to implement the initiative. So if customer impact is high, business goals are high, and the effort is low, that is something that you can prioritize easily, because you will know if the effort is low, fixing it you can measure the improvements very early because the effort is low. So that is how a prioritization is done. So, NK, for one last thing before we take all other questions, would you like to share some tips to make it successful?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what we have like inner loop, but for the closer loop is very, very important because it's more broader, right? Like
Mhm.
Tanuja said, that recorded. So closed loop recording is very, very important, even for the outer loop. If you see that there's a trend coming in for this particular issue, that gets up to the tier of your priority. So knowing that like the closed loop is there, keep a track of it. Second, like I shared in previous slide, that know the KPI of different departments so that you are able to influence and are able to make that priority for it. Set
Yeah.
up bi-weekly meetings to understand, hey, what improvements are happening, how things are happening. And sometimes you also get to know that, hey, what is the future coming up. So you really need to know and have that information, and present your findings just to influence that if you really want to solve those problems. Because if you are a business owner, and if you are like a department head and you want to influence the business owner for part of that, because your department wants to do something for certain particular segment of the client, so you have to
Mhm.
create a use case. You have to make sure that you do it on a regular basis and understand and bring them the data of customer. These are my
Yeah.
customer feedback, these are my customer sentiment, this is what they're talking about, this is my CLV value of my customer that they are going to talk about. So those data, those customer feedbacks are really, really going to make an impact. Yeah. And the fourth and most important factor is that communicate the improvement plans to the customers and employees. Let them know once you are done with the improvements. I think that we talked about this. These
Yeah.
are four key pillar elements. And I think like if you put this into your CX framework, you are absolutely going to make it a good deal. And you will tell that, okay, we have deployed this and are able to successfully close it and able to increase our business and revenues on part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just but one thing that you note, ask customer feedback again, like next time for the improvements, right? But don't ask customer again a feedback if you are not made that improvement. I've seen that like
Mhm.
this is the biggest thing that hampered the brand loyalty, and people started losing their NPS scores over the period of time, and also losing their response rates. If somebody has shared a problem, don't send a follow-up feedback saying that, okay, how likely are you to recommend in that time frame period? This will be like killing your brand, right? Don't
Yeah.
do that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is very common. This is very easy to know. But I think still I have seen, people will just grab the list of campaign, will send it to them, but they don't know if any of these customers have already lodged a complaint. They're already, receiving some issues. What they're expecting out of them? Definitely a detractor score, right? So just be
Yeah.
careful for.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think online platforms, the good thing about them is, NK, you can set this up that don't send a survey to customer in the next 30 days or something, right? So you can
Correct.
control this as well. Yeah. So that
You flag,
problem
you
will
you
happen.
you you can do a threshold. You can
Yeah.
flag those customers who have a negative feedback so that they cannot be sent like a follow-up service. So this is really critical.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Okay.
it's okay, but this is key thing that you want to address it. And I think there are a lot of tools available that can help. But yes, this is very critical, keep it in mind. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's
So
see, I
NK,
think we got a couple of
yeah.
questions. Let me
Okay. So
just read the
let
first
me
one
put
for
the
you.
question.
Let me read the first one for you.
Okay. Okay,
All
NK.
right. The challenge on surveying NPS is that scale 9 or 10 considered as willing to recommend the product services. But people tend to give 7 or 8 that represent their satisfaction level is suffice. This relates on a cultural behavior on a rating services like Indonesia. Absolutely. How
Yeah.
can overcome this as a standard formula in NPS?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Uh, okay. Good question, Mufti. So there are two ways. One is like, because NPS is not something which like has been created and we cannot modify it, right? So I tend to agree because I work with a lot of people in Indonesia that people give 7 or 8, and 8 is like their super satisfaction level. So if you are calculating your NPS scores on for your own, why not make 8, 9, 10 as promoters? It is something on you. Maybe it's a small change that you would have to do, but you can do that. That is one way. I've seen that with my other clients in South Africa who have done that pretty well, because they also knew that their people don't give 9 or 10 ratings. One option is that of doing changing the way NPS scores work. The second is, don't consider NPS, compare your NPS with a country like a US or a UK, where people are tend to give more feedback, like you mentioned about the culture. So if you're looking at NPS scores, benchmark against yourself, and if you're benchmarking against the competition, do it only in the same country, because you will see the NPS score of 27 in Indonesia might be very good, but it's not that good in US. So it's something that we have to figure out, that we benchmark against even ourselves. Like I have an NPS score of maybe 15 tomorrow, and 6 months down the line, I have to make sure it reaches to 22, 23. So I'm benchmarking against myself how I'm doing on my own performance, rather than thinking for a NPS for a different country. So that is two things that I would like to share. The other question, NK, I'll take that up. And meanwhile, like please, whoever is still there, sitting there, ask your questions. If you want to share something, just raise your hand so that we can bring you in the call as well. So second question is it allowed to take the resurvey after the issue has been resolved? How can we be able to see the satisfaction result based on the successful follow-up and closing the loop? So another great question, Pa Mufti. I would say that do not resurvey the same customer and do not ask them to change their score, because if they have given you a score previously, then it's something that they were honest about it. You can do a resurvey to them, push the question on the same score, and just ask, based on how we deal with the issue that you faced, how likely you are to recommend us to a friend or a family. In that sense, because now you are just changing the context of the question. In the resurvey, you are asking them, based on how we have resolved your concern, how likely you are to recommend. So you will see a difference in an NPS score. Maybe they gave you a 5 before, and now they're giving an 8 or a 9, because you have already fixed, you have done the closed loop with them. So these are the two things that I would like to share.
Yeah, I think the second question for Mufti, I think this is very related. What you can also do, your question is that how you are able to see the satisfaction results, right? So if you're asking your first question where you are actually closing the loop, so you have a score for that, right? And when you resolve the question, then you're doing a follow-up and you're asking again that, okay, how was it? Are we able to solve it? And then you see that
Hello?
okay, hello.
NK, are you there? I think we lost you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So what I'm saying is that we can create a dashboard where you can map all the respondents. You can see that, okay, this respondent, the first journey touch point, at the touch point, he has given me this score. And the next follow-up, he has given me this score. So you can do the comparison at the customer level also. And if you want to do as an overall, like, okay, what was my score before and after? So you can create different surveys and see the combined data in a dashboard for comparison very easily. Yes, we could do that.
So there was a question, NK, from Degya. They mentioned which one is more important to solve first. Is it like inner loop or the outer loop, and why? So the thing that I was just mentioning there on the chat, that the first thing is, of course, the inner loop, because it requires less effort and you don't need permission from other departments to do it. Always start with inner loop, and then you can do outer loop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I got one more question here from Stuti. Thank you for the question. What should be the ideal quarantine period? How can we identify quarantine based on business? I think like you're asking the question that how much time you should not resurvey to the same customer, right? So I would say that it is based on the transaction. So it is based on how often the customer is trying to reach out to you, right? So how much often he does the transaction with you. So try to find it. Ideally, if it's a B2C type of thing, you are the customer is like reaching out to you every day. So nobody is expecting to receive a survey every day for the transactions, right? So ideally it's a monthly, and it is also dependent upon your how is your customer base. So if you have like startup, or like if you're doing like new things you want to address and get to know more, so you can do it daily basis. Yes. If you have like help picked customers, B2B cases, yes. But if you're having large customer base, then don't do daily. I would recommend that, like if you're asking about transactional, so you should keep it like every month. And if you're doing relationship type of service for your B2B, then keep it quarterly.
Yeah, got it. So one last thing, NK, I would like to launch a poll for anyone who is interested in getting set up their closed loop, just a simple free workshop, nothing else, where me and NK will give you a call and understand what's going on, and if there's something we can help with. So it's a free consultation. If anyone wants to do it, just they can say yes, or they can just say no in the poll.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they just want to like add one more thing. What is in it for you in this workshop? So basically in this workshop, you can get a framework from the start to the execution point. Trying to understand is how you set up, how the execution should be taken, how you can get the champion inside your organization who can drive this, and then how you can scale it up. So we would work together with you to create this entire framework for you.
Okay. So anyone else would want to respond? Even if you're not interested, you just can say no.
Nobody would say no.
Maybe it's working well, NK, for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's people like like, again, see, this is like a geography, right? Somebody would say no. I think like it's very rude to say. I'm not saying like you can say no, guys. You can say no. I will appreciate that. I'm very empathetic. I take feedbacks, right? But the reason is that like we talk about geography, right? So people will be more positive way. So yeah, that's way. But yes, I think, but I can guarantee you this, like you would definitely get something out of this with this framework. This is really cool stuff that I have really worked on the customers that been working well, and we can really deploy this for your own specific use case.
I think I'll end the poll for now. So 3 people answered yes. So if anyone wants to do it, you can reach out to me and NK on the LinkedIn as well. We try to stay very active on LinkedIn. And if we do not have any questions, I would like to thank everyone for joining in and staying on the call for such a long time. Hope it was helpful. And if you still have any questions, you let us know. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on LinkedIn and talk more.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much, Tanuj, for this delightful conversation today. And thank you, audience, for asking those questions. And we'll look forward and connect with you all. Thank you so much.